Yeah, most of them are just avoiding those conversations, right? Like, when was the last time you saw Ben Shapiro or any of these people have like a challenging convo that wasn't just them fighting with college kids or something?
I mean, Ben Shapiro, his conversation with Newsom, I thought was overall good. I thought there were a couple. Don't raid. Hang on, Chad. Don't do that. What are you doing? End that raid right now. I'm serious. I'm so serious. Jesus Christ.
Who are they raiding?
Hutch MF, who's like this gamer, and you're gonna raid him with a bunch of political shit? Don't do that. You're embarrassing me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
shit. I had a friend bring that up. Like, yeah, I didn't know Hutch did politics. Because is that the guy who plays with like the burnt peanut?
Yeah, and Summit. I feel bad. I feel bad because I know he gets people in his chat that are, confusing him for me. And
yeah.
But anyways, yeah, I don't know. Did you watch the whole conversation that he had with Newsom? It was Newsom and Shapiro.
I didn't watch that one. However, like Newsom's podcast is, again, that's a place that's a pretty soft. Like, he's not bringing you there to go hard into the paint on things, right? Like, you're going to get a pretty soft conversation with Newsom. I think I watched the whole Bannon one. I watched the Charlie Kirk one. Like, that just seems to be more like a bridge building back and forth kind of podcast that Newsom has going on, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think he's looking at the same polls that the strategists are looking at, where the electorate is telling pollsters that they're tired of the partisan bickering, and so I think he's trying to occupy that lane. But he pushed back against Shapiro for 99% of the conversation, not super aggressively, but definitely pushed back against the talking points. And Newsom is very sharp in those kinds of settings, and so
yeah, there's a thing. I would have to watch this, but like, for the current Trump stuff, like, I would have an issue going on to a show and just pushing back and then having it so we both state our arguments and then move on to the next thing, because I think the current stuff is completely and utterly indefensible, and I would want the audience to come away understanding that that's my position. So, not like, I think it was bad that ICE basically sent agents to Minnesota, killed 2 U.S. citizens, and then covered for them and got them out of the state. And then for the other guy to be like, well, there a lot of people are being doxxed, and there is kind of a threat to ICE agents right now, and a lot of that is kind of up for debate on whether or not they were allowed or not allowed to execute force there. Like, to come away, to just have that back and forth and for people to go, well, he gave pushback. I would want to really drill into that. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
yeah.
that was a moment that went a bit viral, and I thought it was a disappointing moment because, Ben baited him by calling out the press office, calling ICE terrorists or something like that. And that was a really perfect opportunity in my mind for him to recenter the conversation in a different way, to say, well, do you want to get mad at strongly worded tweets, or do you want to talk about what ICE is actually doing? And then you followed up by doing that. Just felt like a layup, and it felt like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, because people don't have a mind that are consuming media to appropriately assign magnitude. So if somebody says, you agree that that killing Renee and Alex Petty, these were bad things, right? And the guy's like, yeah, but you also agree that that tweet was bad too. And you're like, well, yeah. Then the audience comes away thinking like, oh, okay, well, both sides agree that there was like a bad thing that happened. And they don't really ascribe an appropriate magnitude to it, which is, why you have to push harder on those issues, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you have someone like Newsom who is going to have a really aggressive media schedule, there's going to be more opportunities for missteps. And so he, unfortunately, is going to be evaluated. Well, first of all, he's not even my first or second or third pick. I don't know if he's electable on a national scale, but it does bother me, and I do feel the urge to jump in and run a little defense when people try to define him with the podcast appearances. Like, I don't know how you feel about it, but it drives me insane these days to see so many people in the kind of populist online left make the claim that Newsom and the Democratic Party have abandoned trans people. Like, that actually drives me fucking insane.
True.
I mean, it took even just a couple seconds to look into Newsom's legislative track record in California. It's actually insane. It's like 3 to 4 dozen bills that he signed into law, like really meaningful bills. A lot of these are very, they've helped like thousands and thousands of trans people in this state. And, judging him off of like a 20-second clip on podcast with Ben Shapiro is not surprising behavior from the public, but it's still like on this topic especially, it's so fucking absurd considering that the Democratic Party is, I would say, like really holding the line on a number of issues. And a lot of these are unpopular, like Mills suing, the state of Maine suing Donald Trump to fight his trans sports ban. That's like a 90-10 issue, and the Democrats are still fighting that fight and winning. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree on any of that. I mean, it's not surprising, though, that people who live purely in kind of like the online discourse world are only evaluating him based on his online discourse, because these people, it seems like they don't really ever talk about actual legislation at all. It's always just their hypothetical, perfect legislation. So if it's not single-payer healthcare or a huge wealth tax, then you're basically doing nothing, and then they're just going to evaluate you completely on what you say on podcasts, because the podcast world is the only place these people exist. Not to give an excuse for them, but yeah, it's very annoying, I agree. Yeah.
They're also lying about Newsom, just straight up lying about him. Like, I don't know who first started saying this, but it seems like everybody's now saying it, from that, who's the one girl, the young woman of the Bituation Room? She's been on Piers a bunch. She's a former TYT person.
Oh, is it Francesca?
Yeah. So like Francesca, Jank, Hassan, Kyle Kulinski, they're all claiming that Newsom vetoed single payer in California,
sure.
which is just that is just something that did not happen. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the next year or two are going to go as we kind of dive in closer to the election, but
yeah, definitely annoying. I don't disagree. I think that one issue, I think, is that I like what Newsom does with his podcast, and I like what Newsom does as a politician. Unfortunately, I don't know if he can do both of those things. Like, I enjoy the idea of somebody has to be able to talk to these people on the other side of the aisle, and we have to show that we can have conversations and all of that. But it's weird to have that person who embodies that also be kind of our mainstream political fighter on the policy and legislative front against the Trump administration as well. Like I don't know if he can do both of those things. Even though I think independently, I think both those things are great. I don't know if I would want those embodied in the same person, you know?
It's kind of theoretically impossible.
Yeah,
because
one will kind of undermine the other, seemingly, you know? Even if it doesn't really, like, from public appearance, it'll just have the appearance of doing that.
Yeah, it's also because you have to, when you're someone who's running for president, you have to take these really concrete policy positions, and there's no way to thread the needle in a way that's going to make everybody happy. So, you know, one side or another are going to be upset that he picked this policy over that policy, and it's a lot easier to be just like a surrogate or a pundit or a mouthpiece and just kind of scrap with Republicans in a very broad, general sense.
Sure.
So I don't even know if it's theoretically possible to be like a really successful podcast person who everybody likes in that kind of setting, but also, you know, everybody likes their policies. It's just a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and maybe contraindicated at times or whatever based on, you know, what the debate is. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I want to ask you some questions.
Yeah. Wait, I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. The lead into this was about Newsom.
And Constantine, the debate.
Constantine, the debate. Yeah, that was something. Yeah. Okay, all right, yeah. Okay, go for it. What's next?
Okay. So I have to say I've been a little alarmed because based on my observations, there have been a lot of DGG that I would say are engaging in rhetoric that I think is quite black-pilled and at times sounds very similar to the kind of rhetoric that we heard from the online populist left in their efforts to justify an electoral strategy of, you know, non-participation or voting third party. I've seen some clips of you talking about how you feel about things and talking about policy. It's honestly difficult to know a lot of the times if you're being hyperbolic or if you're being kind of edgy, because there are times, for example, like I've seen a clip of you saying that it seemed with a great deal of sincerity, you were saying that we need to find a way to arrest and imprison every current Republican that's serving in government right now. And I mean, so I guess like a good place to start the conversation would just be to evaluate like what you think of the current political zeitgeist. So just like 1 year into Trump 2.0, like how would you say you're generally feeling about things?
I mean, I would say generally I feel absolutely horrible in terms of like all the things that Trump has managed to accomplish so far and undermining our relationships with other people around the world and the tariffs and the expansion of presidential power and all that. I imagine we probably feel similarly on that, but I'm guessing you're angling more at the, don't you feel like people are en masse rejecting this and we're going to do well in the midterms, like that kind of perspective, or?
We can get into that. I mean, it's wherever your thoughts go with it. Just,
I mean, I feel really horrible. I feel like there's been a lot of, the American public has an appetite for kind of authoritarian behavior to a much greater extent than I ever thought. And the fact that Trump was able to staff the government with so many sycophantic people to kind of go with him on this, I think is pretty sad and pathetic. The extent to which, I mean, it's just like so much stuff. We're a year and a month in or whatever, and it's just been like thing after thing after thing after thing of insanity.
Yeah, I guess my observation is that when I hear, so I obviously, I don't know, I'm getting older, and I've been in a relationship for like 10 plus years. And like one of the things that you work on is trying to identify what is behind the emotion that you're immediately being confronted with. So I'm trying to focus on the fact that, people have every right to feel angry and afraid about this administration.
Sure.
And all of that is obviously eminently valid. I think I take a little bit of a different view here because that kind of take doesn't feel holistic enough to encompass like how things have shifted since the 2024 election. I feel like a lot of people got stuck in a kind of stasis, like an emotional and mental stasis in the immediate aftermath. Because right after the election for me, what I was afraid of was, holy fucking shit, like not only did he win the election again, he won the popular vote for the first time Republicans done that in, I don't even remember the last time. Maybe was it George W. Bush in 2004, I think was maybe the last time. And so I was worried that this was just what the country was turning into. All of the resist lib stuff from the first term, the kind of peak woke era, all that, that was just a mirage and a temporary distraction. And now we're kind of like really revealing who we are as a country. That was my immediate concern. And then over the last year, a lot of things have happened that have made me feel not like less vigilant about Trump and what he can do with power and all the damage that he can do, but certainly better about the short-term path that we're on.
What makes you feel better, I guess?
It's a combination of things. Like I would say first and foremost on the list of things that make me feel like hopeful and bullish on America's prospects, that we can kind of get back to normal. And I think I define normal as like not feeling like I have to worry about whether or not my country is going to last as a constitutional republic. Like that's how I would define normal in this context. But the first thing on the list would be the electoral results over the last year. The special election margins have been just truly insane. I don't know if you saw the results from last night, but another really good night for Democrats. We flipped a red seat in Arkansas, overperformed by 23 points relative to 2024. Not only that, I'm also encouraged by the candidates that are seeing success within the Democratic Party. Like, I think Mamdani is a really impressive person who, earned my respect in a lot of ways. I think he's been really savvy, both with his campaign and the way he's been governing. I'm also equally impressed with Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey and Spanberger in Virginia. Not only did they put up really impressive margins, but they are governing very aggressively and using that power to do, policies that I consider to be quite good. So that to me just really, really matters. Like the electoral success of Democrats, the candidate quality. It doesn't look like we're having like a Tea Party revolt within the party right now. Like last night, there was a Bernie endorsed candidate who lost against a, kind of so-so incumbent. And so I'm not as worried about that kind of chaos. Maybe it looks like it's going to be a little bit more cohesive going into the midterms in 2028. And then also it's just, and then I'll finish up here, but like the two things that make me feel bullish right now are these results, and then also I'm looking at the response from the people. So, you know, this term, even though they're not covered as much, there have been more protests this term than there were by this point in the first, in the second term than there were by this point in the first term. I look at King's protest. I went to that protest. That was the largest protest I've ever been to. It was nonviolent. It was like kind of joyful and hopeful, and that kind of gave me some energy. I look at Minnesota, the people of Minnesota. I thought that was exceptionally brave and inspiring. I felt like they were like lighting the beacons of Gondor for the rest of the nation. You know, an American was shot and killed, and then thousands of people took to the streets. Another one was killed, and then thousands more, tens of thousands, were marching in sub-zero temperatures. and they didn't get the administration to completely pull out of Minnesota, but they got, there was a major drawdown there. So I have other reasons too, but those are the things that stick out to me for why I'm optimistic.
So I guess there's like a couple big things that I am very scared about. So one is that it's not good enough to course correct when the course was so far off in the beginning when it shouldn't have been. One thing I used to complain about for Vosh that Vosh would do is, and other people do this too, is you'll hop on a breaking news story. It's the information that's coming out initially is not correct, but they get to collect all of the centrist podcast people are doing this right now. You get to collect all the virtue from having Trump on your podcast and all of the excitement and the audience and the clicks and the views, even though he's obviously fucked and there's a whole bunch of horrible stuff about this guy that everybody should be able to see prospectively, okay? Not retrospectively, we should be able to see it at the time that he's saying that it's going to be really bad. And then, so they get to collect all of that, and then once Trump goes really bad, as any honest actor could have seen, these aren't hard predictions, you don't have to be Nostradamus to see that a guy who's saying he's going to tear up the entire world, ends up tearing up the entire world, right? That now they're saying, well, I think that Trump is not good for this stuff. I disagree with this stuff. And now the audience is like, oh my God, like, well, he's an honest actor. It's cool that he actually is admitting that he was wrong on this, and it's like, no, that's not good enough. Like, this is stuff that we all could have seen ahead of time. Why did it take so long for us to finally course correct, Like, so I guess, so one is like the course correction is not good enough. There are some things that you can course correct on. Like, I'll be sympathetic to people who supported Trump in the first term, because I think there was enough ambiguity there that who knows, maybe it could have gone good, maybe not. But by the second time you're supporting him, there's something that is extremely broken with you as a commentator, a political pundit, whatever. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this is going to get more into, I imagine we'll talk about later, the consequences part. It's not checks and balances when you continue to fuck around. You try to destroy rule of law and corrupt the system as much as you can, and then the government is told to stop by the courts, and so then you kind of stop, but you get to collect all the benefit of the bad shit that you did, and then look for another way to fuck with the system, being fully open and transparent that you're simply just trying to fuck with the system. That's not a good state of affairs either. So, like, seeing America saying, wow, actually Trump is really bad. Like, here's the one thing. Okay, there's a third point, too. The instability of it all is also insane, right? Like, what does the rest of the world look at the United States and they go, you really needed Trump a second time to see how fucked he is? That's not comforting at all to any other country on the planet. And then kind of a final question, to wrap up all three of these, a question for you. Let's assume that the economy was going really well for whatever reason. Maybe the AI stuff was doing even better than we thought it would, and it's buoying the entire economy and job markets and everything else. Do you think the American public would be turning their back on Trump right now, or do you think it would just carry on business as usual, irrespective of all the insane shit he's doing domestically and internationally?
Well, just to hit your last question first, yes, I do. But I don't think that it would be at the same margins. So his approval rating in the aggregate right now, for G. Elliott Morris's new aggregate, he left 538. Now he does a new thing called 50+1. Trump is down to, I think, 38 or 39. Sure. So maybe that would be like a few points higher. And
just a
but
few
my
points
reasoning
higher,
for
do you
that
really think so?
Yeah, I do. And my reasoning for that is we can just take a look at the first term.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the first term, the economy was doing really well. And like, especially in those first few years before COVID came around, that was massively disruptive. But even in the context of COVID, like, people made it out like pretty well, all things considered, when COVID was happening. The average family, the median family, saw their net wealth go up in 2028 because we had such generous stimulus programs in this country relative to other countries. And even despite all that, even despite people's net wealth going up in 2020 and a really strong economy that had basically at that point fully recovered from the recession by the time it was passed off from Obama to Trump, his approval rating went down a lot, like, during that time. It was pretty volatile. I mean, it was starting to rebound slowly by the time we got to COVID, and then it just crashed back down again because he was so fucking incompetent. But that was the public voicing their disgust with the way that he was conducting himself. I mean, I don't know if you remember vividly the first term. I do. I mean, like, he kicked it off by, like, firing Comey. That was a big scandal.
Sure, but I know that his vote changes a little bit, the popularity changes a little bit with moderates and then with Democrats, but my understanding is for his first term, that the Republican approval, I think at one point it might have dipped to 89, but I think otherwise it was 90 plus basically the entire time.
Right, but you're talking about the Republican voter base. And
yeah.
I think that is a mistake to restrict the analysis to just Republicans. Like, we can't really do much about enthusiastic Republicans Maybe there's a candidate like Tallarico, for example. I think there's a lot of interesting potential there. If he is to win that seat in Texas, he's gonna have to peel away Trump voters.
Sure, but I think I would feel really depressed, I guess, if our analysis for feeling good about the future of the United States already begins with a priori writing off half the country, or a little bit like close to half the country, because we just consider them a lost cause.
Well, I mean, it just depends. It's a case by case. I'm not saying that you should entirely write Republican voters off. If there is a way to message to, get them to be open to supporting a Democrat, and we can get into Tallarico. I find him just really fascinating. I think there's a lot of potential there. He's running more kind of nonpartisan. He's doing populism, but he's framing it in a more biblical, kind of soft, less brain rot kind of way. As opposed to like Plattner, who's doing the kind of traditional brain rot populism. And so I think that there is potential down there to peel voters back. And so I'm not saying entirely write them off, but if I were to evaluate the state of the country purely based on looking at Republican voter base, I agree. I would be extremely depressed and feel totally hopeless as to, where the country is headed in the short term. But I wouldn't do that, because I don't understand the point of doing that. Why would you do that? If we're talking about the possibility of getting past this moment, that will necessarily mean like winning more elections. And if you just look at the state of things right now electorally, the Republican Party are pretty fucked, like really fucked. Like there's over 36 congressional Republicans that have resigned. That's a lot. That doesn't happen unless they think that they're heading towards a catastrophe in November.
Yeah, but I don't think winning the election